When you hold the cello bow, the part of the hand that holds it is these bones right here, not the tips of your fingers. You're not holding like a violin. A violin would sometimes tip out like this in a way. That's not what we're doing as cellists. We have a larger instrument and we have thicker strings, so we have to control it. Yet, we don't have to use so much of the fingers. So instead of using the tips, we dip them down deeper and use what I call the intermediary phalanges here. This bone, or this intersection right here, this is what you use when you are playing the instrument. So that bone there, if you have X-ray vision, that bone there is the bone that's engaging. So sometimes you'll see cellists that put their fingers out like this because they're engaging with this secondary bone. The four fingers are really naturally flowing like this. And you take your hands and you just have it very, very dead, and you put the bow, I'm taking the left hand and put the bow here into the right hand. The thumb is going to go half on, half off the talon, I call it the nook right here. It's going to be on its side. Your middle finger is going to wrap around the other side. It's going to look like this. It's going to have this little shape. So your thumb makes a little hook, almost like a shelf, and then the middle finger wraps along the other side. That is the core. Notice how I'm still holding with my left hand. So hold it with your left hand. And so you set this up first. Okay? Thumb into the nook, wrap around that middle finger. Can I do that? Thumb into the nook. Yes. Good. Good. Just keep it down here so we're used to it. And have the bow face flat toward terra firma like this. So I'm holding it. So it's not going to be turned like this. It's an important thing. The bow is actually faced toward the ground when we play, well, mostly toward the ground. Here we go. Thumb in the half of the way in the nook, and your middle finger wrapped around, and you're touching, the thumb wants to touch that inner bit, that inner finger right there, but it won't. They're going to be on either side of the bow. Take your your third finger, this one, and place it gently flat against what we call la pastilla. This little white piece you have right here, little white dot. Yeah. Take your fourth finger flat and place that flat here. Now we're going to wiggle your index finger. Wiggle it. Good. Now this is our snake. And like a snake on a branch, we're going to take it and wrap it around. And as it wraps around, it's going to pull the hand. See what we're pulling a hand. And so this right here is what you're touching now. People have different ways, but I use one finger on either side of it. So your index finger, once again, thumb in the nook, wrapped around the middle, place the third finger on la pastilla, the fourth finger flat, and we take our snake and we're going to put it here and then wrap it around and let it pull in. Notice what I'm doing. I'm engaging it, but everything else is reacting to that. And what happens is this finger here controls the trajectory of the bow. Now, as you see, I've released it with my left hand. If you think right now, this feels unnatural, this feels weird, this feels new. Doesn't feel unnatural, it feels new, okay? Just like the very first time you held a writing utensil as a child, you're like, oh, I don't know how to use this, or maybe older trying to use chopsticks or things of that nature. It can be new and different. But to think about this and you're wondering as to why do we hold the bow in this manner? Because we want to be able to engage with our wrist, but also always control the trajectory with our index finger with the least amount of effort. Because that's what cello is all about. The cello is about playing with the least amount of effort. Being able to go between a quick bow stroke to a subtle bow stroke, all those things can happen if you have your wrist ready to use, your fingers ready to use, ready to both apply power on the low string and then release power on the high string. And you'll see the hand sort of flow like this. You'll see this motion, what I'm doing here. But when I'm out here at the end, It's much less. I'm very much engaged. I'm rolling. I'm called torquing inward. I'm applying pressure inward. I'm pulling the bow into my body because the weight of the bow is built in. A mezzo forte, your bow, naturally plays mezzo forte. I'll repeat this for you. Your bow is built in mezzo forte, MF. Proof. Watch this. C string, no pressure. All I'm going to do is balance the bow. In other words, I'm going to balance the baguette. This is the baguette, this is the crown, and le baguette right here. I know there's a lot of food. Pastilla, it's a mint. I know it's a lot of food involved in this. French love food. I'm going to balance it in a way that the hair, so it's really at an angle. I'm using the inner third of the hair. And then I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to hold it, guide it, control the trajectory, no pressure, and all I'm going to do is pull the bow, and the rosin and the weight of the bow is going to create a mezzo forte. That is a mezzo forte. You don't have to do any effort. I'm just holding it and pulling it. I'm no pressure. I'm just balancing the stick, balancing the baguette above the crown. And you notice how it stays nice and present until the end. This is called a torse bow, and these bows were given was such an amazing invention for us, and that's why we stick for it for so long. It's about over 300 years old. And this invention allowed us to play with more power throughout the length of the bow. So, like I told you, take your hand, thumb here, middle wrapped, third finger in la pastilla, fourth finger flat. Wiggle your snake, put it down on the leather, on sur la housse, and then start to wrap it and let that wrap a little bit so you have it engaged. Now, we all have different hands. Some people have longer fingers than I. Maybe your fingers will drape below the talon. That's okay. My fingers don't. So my fingers stop right here at la vigole. That's a piece called la vigole right here. So thumb in the nook, middle across, third in la pastilla, fourth right here on the bouton, well, near the bouton, and then last bit, le serpent. We're going to apply it here, wrap it, let it wrap, and then the whole hand, including the thumb, is going to adjust. Balance it here so you're not, very important what happens next. You want to balance it at the right angle. And the right angle, it's really easy actually. I'm going to look at you. I'm looking at you through right here, right below my index finger. I'm looking through my bow. You can do this with me. Look at me through that hole. Now turn your bow. We can't see through it anymore. That right there. Now put it on your, here, right here, on a string. I'm going to pick the G string. Turn it so you cannot see anymore through. You can't see the ground anymore. Turn it so you can't see anymore. And that is ideal. Lastly, be aware that your index finger controls the trajectory of your bow. So when you're close here to the talon, you have to engage a lot less. Here, you have to engage a lot more. So I'm engaged, meaning I'm flexing, I'm really holding, and then I'm relaxing out. So pulling now, relaxed, arm as straight as possible. And really feel that engagement of your index finger. As you see, my index finger is really engaged at that point. Again. If you do find cramping with this new type of playing, and I'm meaning that if your hand, you're feeling tension right here, then you can easily release that tension by putting the thumb right here on the outer side. Because sometimes you tend to pinch, you're holding it actually with the death grip. When you put it on the outer side, right here, so put your whole hand together, and the last bit, so thumb, wrap, third, fourth, snake wraps around, and the last bit, I'm going to take the thumb and place it on the outside. It opens up the hand, and sometimes maybe pinch it a little bit so that loosens up. Remember, when you put the bow onto the string, it then becomes like another finger, if you will, holding it. It acts like another platform. Now you can't really play with it nice and turned, okay, when you have like that. So it'll actually be it'll be much more like this. But children, when children begin, sometimes it's really hard for them to hold it, so they actually hold it like this. They actually put it on the outside. It's something if you do feel a little bit of cramping. But remember, the thumb is a shelf where the bow sits on. It's holding it. It's in a way, it's a little hook. It's in a way, you're not pushing in like this and pulling in like this. This will cramp because you're flexing. You're doing two opposing forces. Your thumb needs to be in a shape, and your middle finger comes and wraps to it. Here's another tip about playing cello and the bowing. On cello, we're all elbows. We're all elbows all the time. Elbows, elbows, elbows. So your elbows go up. Elbows go up. We're not going to be able to do this sort of stuff. So when I say lift your elbow concerning your right arm, meaning that here we are on the G, lift your elbow. Don't shrug. Don't shrug. Another thing is we don't shrug. This is your shrugging muscle. You don't want to do that. We're not shrugging, okay? Your rotator cuffs. There's this right here, this muscle. Whoop. Do this. Put your arms next to you and lift your elbows out like wings. Very good. Now shrug. Relax your shoulders. See that? You can lift your elbows without shrugging, okay? Shrugging is the worst because that muscle, if you don't know what muscle it is, we're going to call it the shrug muscle. That muscle lifts the bow off of the string. We want the elbow to be out, but we don't want the bow to be lifted off the string.